I want to welcome you to the 2020 virtual book fair. It's called Tell Your Story. I decided to do this because of all the things that's going on, and COVID has basically shut down our summer. And with that being said, I want to mention one of our sponsors. It's called Life Happens Insurance Agency. With so many things unpredictable in the world, our health, life, automobile, so many things that we should be covered for, and a lot of people have not been. Contact her. She will get you a free quote, and she will get you the best rate that's out there. Again, that's Life Happens Insurance Agency, and you can reach them at 614-599-7960. And moving on to Shawntaye, I'm going to let you go first to discuss your book.
Okay.
My first question to you is, what made you start writing?
I've always written poems, first and foremost, ever since I was a kid. When I was about 9 years old, I started writing poems. I wrote a poem to my dad after he got killed. And from that point on, I will always write in my diaries. I will always write in my journals. And as I got older in school, around middle school, high school, I started reading urban fiction books. And so I just started trying to write like short stories, fiction stories. And so that's how I got started with writing. Last year, I self-published 2 books that didn't do so well. And so I decided that maybe writing wasn't for me. And I ended up going back to my hometown and talking to a family member of mine about the situation. And my family member basically gave me that extra push to keep going and keep trying as a writer. And she actually came up with the idea with the book. So as she's telling me what she thinks, I'm like, okay, I can put that into words. So once we kind of like gathered up the setting of it, I started writing it. I wrote the book. I started writing it in October of last year. By February, I was done with the book. And so from that point on, I dropped the book. I let her decide the name of the book. And that's how my series, Hoes in the Hood, came about.
Now, what is the name of the 3 books that you have out now?
Okay, so the first 2 I released last year. One was titled A Twisted Story, and the other one was called A Diamond from the Rough and Hoes in the Hood, part 1 and 2.
Okay, what I want to say to you is this: get discouraged
Mm-hmm.
about writing, because you're going to have an audience. Once you get your name out there, you have an audience that will follow you anywhere. And sometimes just because we don't sell what we want to sell, or not this time around with the first book, and maybe the second, and maybe the third, but whatever happens for you, they will go back and read the books that you have previously published and that you have previously written. So don't get discouraged about writing based on sales.
Mm-hmm.
I I did this platform because it's called Tell Your Story, because it's your story. It's your writing. It's not to be compared to anybody else. With that being said, what you said, you were from where?
I'm from Chattahoochee, Florida.
Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
where do you reside? Where do you reside now?
I live in Panama City, Florida now.
Now, did you do a book fair with, not a book fair, but a author signing with either books, any of the books that you had?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I would encourage you to do that. Once COVID is under some type of control. I don't know when it will
Mm-hmm.
leave or what the future holds as far as that is concerned, but um, you know, hopefully soon, so we can kind of go back to some type of normalcy. So, what
Right.
exactly is your book about?
So basically, my book is about several females living in an urban community. It's more so of described like a project.
Hmm.
And basically, I wrote a story of all of the things that women deal with in the urban community. Like some of them have some of them have several baby daddies. Some of them have the same baby daddy. Some of them have a lot of kids. They hate each other. They envious of each other. They jealous of each other. It's like they spit out more negative than the positive in this urban community. So I took it and I wrote down everything I have seen. And I was like, okay, I'm going to present it this way because I want us to know as women, this is really how we are looked at. Like the way that you present yourself, that's how people think of you.
Yeah, I agree with that definitely, especially with a lot of the reality shows that are on TV. They're not the best representation of women and what women stand for.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in our culture, being a woman of color, we don't have a whole lot of things on TV as far as being positive or being a positive role model and things of that nature. So that's probably a great thing. And also too, it comes from um, sometimes from what you are used to as you grow up, how to deal with
Yep.
conflict and solutions instead of arguing and, oh, it was you, or no, it was you, just going back and forth. And unfortunately, some people just don't have the skills set forth to
Right.
actually dig into the problem and find a solution. And so they have the narrative of the negative TV because that's what sells.
Right.
People want to see us fighting each other. They want to see the arguments. They want to see the shade. They want to see the name calling because it's entertaining to them. But in
Mm-hmm.
actuality, um, it's a mental and emotional breakdown for us because it's just not healthy and it's not conducive to any relationship if you do not know how to have problem resolution skills. So
Right.
it's just unfortunate, but it's a good thing to discuss
Mm-hmm.
and to find the solution to it. Now, what would you say would be a solution to some of the issues that you wrote about in your book?
Me personally, because I'm 26 years old and I'm a single mother of three. And I know when I was coming up, I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to listen to my mama. I didn't want to listen to my grandma. My father was killed when I was 9 years old, so I didn't have that male figure to like sit me down and explain to me, you are a woman. You should always carry yourself as a woman. Even though my mom and my grandma, they always, instilled that in me, but it was like I was already suffering from the trauma of losing my dad. So I was rebellious to the two women who was trying to show me love. I thought that I needed love from elsewhere. I thought I needed love from guys. I thought I needed love from friends. When the whole time I had already had it at home. But like I said, I was young, and every female in my book, they are young. Every female I wrote about in that book, I can honestly like relate to them to a certain extent. And that was the reason that I wrote it in regards to the women around my age bracket, is because I want to show the world that this is something that happens every day. Even though it's a fiction story, if you go to an urban community and you pick 5 girls, out of those 5 girls, probably 2 at the most graduated high school. Probably. You
That's
take the other 4 or the other 3, and they're gonna come from broken homes. They're gonna come from a rough background. It's a lot that went into that story. It wasn't just to write it to be negative. I was writing it to show that these are the problems that we are dealing with today. And if you don't have somebody that's strong enough to sit you down and help you understand your value as a woman, you're going to fall victim to it. You're going to be complacent with the situation that you're in, living in a urban community. You're going to be complacent living off the government and waiting for a handout instead of just going and get it yourself. And that's what I try to do with the book. Show that it really does happen this way.
right, that there's another way, that your dreams can come true. You have to believe
Mm-hmm.
yourself. It's, even if you don't have the support, even if you're at home and you did have your dad and you did have them together in one home, or your grandmother, and they just say they weren't supportive. I'm not saying that was your situation, of course, with such your dad passing, but even if you don't have a family of support, even if you get your first book and you're excited because there's nothing like getting the boxes and open them up and they're like, oh, my first book is here, it's here, you know, excited. Even if you do not have the support, even if your friends do not support yourself, believe in yourself, and keep doing what you're doing and writing your story, because that's all that matters. And like I said,
Mhm.
your followers will be your followers. They'll follow you to the end of time and want to know, when's Miss Green's next book coming out? We're excited. We want to go buy it. So that's where you want to go, because like I said, when you keep writing and releasing books, soon as one book sells the way that you want it to, they'll go back and they'll look, oh, she wrote this book, she wrote this book. And then they'll,
Mhm.
you know, get to know you and read everything that came from you.
Right.
So thank you for that. And I think it's an important thing that we have that type of representation to know what is going on with our younger selves.
Mhm.
You do grow when you get older. So what would you tell your younger self?
Oh man, I would tell my younger self, you should have listened. Please listen. And I wish I would have done it differently, but I'm glad I done it the way that I did it. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't have a story to tell. I wouldn't be able to sit here with you and talk about my books. I've always wanted to be a writer. I've always knew that I would be great in life, but at the time I was running reckless at 15 and 16 years old. I was exposed to a lot of stuff. And like I said, time and time again, my mom did try to talk to me. My grandma did try to talk to me. But at that point, I was searching for something that I thought I needed when I had it the whole time. So I definitely would tell my younger self now, you should have listened. And it's okay to be different. It really is.
I had an author on the first panel. She wrote a book about being unique, and that was the name of it. And she wrote it for that purposes. Um, into the fact that she said that she had watched how she didn't watch it, but she's seen where, I think it was in the news. I'm not exactly sure, but she's seen where a young girl committed suicide
Hmm.
from being bullied, and that's something that's going on too. So it's important for ladies like yourself to say, "Hey, I was there," or even myself doing stuff that I had no. I'm just gonna say that I'm happy that social media wasn't out when I was in my 20s,
Hmm.
because it got a little bit wild when I was in my 20s, and I did not have the security of myself, a love of self, or any of that. Those things that I value now, I didn't have
Right.
growing up or in my 20s. So it's important for young girls to know that, hey, we were there, we've been there. I'm 42. So, and I tell my daughter all the time, and even when she was a teenager, I said, listen, you'll be an adult paying bills for the rest of your life. Don't rush it, because those bills come every month. And even though they teach you responsibility, they don't teach you about life. So enjoy the one thing you can't get back, and that's your childhood.
Right. I completely agree. I agree 100%. I really do.
So thank you for sharing your story to Shawntaye.
Mhm.
We're going to move on to Dr. Mr. Cole Scott.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
I'm good. Happy you guys joined me this morning. So please first tell us about yourself. I know that we all have been asked as an author to write your bio. What was in Dr. Nicole Scott's bio?
Well, my bio is a little different because I didn't write a lot when I was a child. I mainly started writing in my adult life. So I more so have a technical background in writing where I've been writing grants for over 15 years. And, I didn't really get into writing until I started going to therapy and I started journaling, after each session and kind of just, doing my homework assignments and coming back to talk about it. And that's basically how I got into, writing as an author, basically using my trials and tribulations and basically taking, my journal entries and basically turning it into a book.
That's excellent. So is this just one book that you have out, or do you have others?
No, so this is my first book. I actually just published it in July. So, I was very excited about that. Nervous, scared, excited all at the same time.
Well, congratulations to you both. Your first book is really important, and it's an exciting, like you said, experience when I stated before, you get your first copy of your book and you tell your friends and family, my book's here, and those that support you will always support you, but don't ever get upset when you see those that don't. Sometimes people don't see our dreams if they can't see their own. So it's not so much they're being a hater or they're being negative. They have just been fine with the way their life is. And you decided to follow something that you felt like you had a passion for. So that's where that non-support comes from. Most of your support will be people you do not know. And so tell us a little bit about your book.
So the subtitle to my book is called From Perfect Storm to Perfect Peace, because basically that's what happened in my life about 3 years ago. And, I started writing the book and, I was telling you ladies earlier about my daughter, but it stemmed from that with her not being my biological daughter. I just raised her from the age of 1 and, her father and I were in a, relationship, but once we split, she continued to live with me, after that point for 2 years. And then, her father would always, use her as a bargaining chip. And it was just one day I put her on the bus for school and I didn't see her for 8 months. And that basically was the beginning of my spiraling down, from just depression, just, anxiety, and just really being in a place of despair and not knowing how to pull myself out of it. And to add to that, I was in a relationship where I knew I was being cheated on. I stayed with him for 4 years, longer than I should have, but because I didn't love myself, I didn't see the value in myself. I didn't feel like that I deserved any better, and then to add on to that, I was dealing with a lot of stuff in my career, so a lot of times people go to work to escape, what's going on in their personal lives, but it's like I hated going to work just as much as I hated being home. So I really had nowhere to turn, so the first chapter of my book is called Suffering in Silence. And that is the main reason why that I wanted to write this book, to kind of bring light and awareness to this, because, especially, in our communities, we're expected to be strong all the time. We can't show signs of weakness. So, because that I chose to suffer in silence versus sharing how, much pain I was in, it almost costed me my life.
And that's an excellent thing that I had discussed in previous book fairs. The one author, she talked about mask under the mask, how we, you know, we'll wear makeup, we'll spend thousands on our hair. We want to impress everybody and buy expensive purses, house, cars, all these material things, but we won't spend a dime on our mental health.
Absolutely.
And it's so important, especially when you're dealing with things that are going on right now, because a lot of people are depressed. They're losing their home, they've lost their jobs, they're trying to normalize what's going on when their kids are suffering as well with the anxiety and depression. And it's a huge issue. Our mental health is important because you truly are not functioning or living if you're dealing with some things that you ultimately could go get help for, but you also have to do the work. So since I asked Shawntaye this question, I want to ask you, what would you tell your younger self?
That I'm beautiful no matter what size I am. I let for far too long, I let, society dictate the narrative that because I was overweight that I wasn't beautiful. or because I was dark skinned, I wasn't beautiful, and I think that would be the biggest lesson that I would tell myself, because I heard it from my parents, I heard it from other people, but I never believed it, so I would have just told myself to love yourself, regardless of what other people may say to you, validate yourself. And that would just be the biggest lesson that I would have told myself.
Is I would like for you to hold a picture up of your book so everybody can see it.
Oops, sorry.
Now, how did you go about picking your cover?
So I went the self-publishing route. So I worked with a publishing company, and their only restrictions was they had to do my cover and my interior formatting. But I was able to give them a few ideas of what I was looking for, and that's how we kind of designed the title, because it was important for me to, when I saw it, that I felt peace or serenity. So I was glad that I was able to have creative license to kind of come up with the cover.
And Shawntaye, what about you? Can you hold your
Oh,
book so we can see it?
yes, ma'am.
I feel so old when people call me ma'am.
Sorry. I'm sorry. But this is part one of my book.
Denial. I don't want to be older.
This is part one of it. I was in the hood. And I love my cover, as a matter of fact. I truly, truly do. Christine Davis, she's an author. She actually designed the cover. She did amazing.
So, what would you, Dr. Nicole, tell people that want to write their first book? What kind of encouragement and advice would you give them?
To just don't get discouraged, because there's always going to be that negative voice in your head that's going to say, oh, nobody wants to hear my story. No one's going to be interested in what I write about. But you'll be surprised that, once you actually publish it, how you'll be met with so much love, support, and encouragement. So, I always tell people it only takes one. If you just inspire one person from your book, then it was worth it. So it's like, I say set realistic expectations, because a lot of times, yes, who wouldn't want to sell 1,000 copies their first month? But just if you're in it for the right reasons of inspiring someone, then I think that that's just the best reason to write a book, period.
And Shawntaye, what advice would you give somebody wanting to write their first book?
Go for it. Always be consistent and don't give up. It don't matter how hard it gets, just don't give up. Go for it.
Okay, so let's discuss a little bit off the subject. I've asked the rest of them this. So what's the craziest thing or the silliest thing that you can remember happened to you? Nicole, we'll go with you first.
Well, like I said, I'm 40 now, so I just want to preface that, what I did in the past, we all did a lot of dumb stuff when we were younger, but when I was in my 20s, my best friend and I, we went to Jamaica, and we thought it would be, a good idea to go off the resort, even though they tell you not to do that. But I mean, hands down, still to this day, one of the best times that I've had, but looking back, I realized like how dangerous that was, but you make, when you don't, before kids and all those other things, you make kind of, rash decisions, but it just was an amazing time. I wouldn't do it now, but that by far was the craziest moment.
And Shawntaye, what would you pick?
I'm not sure. I can't think of a crazy time I had in life.
What you don't want us to know, or you don't know what to say?
I really, because I mean, when I was younger, I did a lot of crazy stuff when I was younger. I was too young to be doing it. So, yeah, I'll skip that part.
I'll share a story with you guys. We when I was in my 20s, we would go downtown a lot, and I don't even know. I can't even say we was in our 20s. I think we was 17, 18, something around there. And we're just driving. We were on campus at OSU, and we're just driving, and all of a sudden we hear a big like bump, and then I see somebody's hat fly, and then everybody's like, stop, stop, you just ran somebody over. Now, mind you, we weren't driving in somewhere where we had to stop, wasn't a stop sign or crosswalk or any of that stuff. Nobody's seen him, but this family member, and I'm not gonna say any names because I don't want her to get mad at me. We stopped and pulled over. It was like a 7-Eleven Taco Bell. We're on Ohio State campus, and they're like, "You ran somebody over," and you know, we're sitting there like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." We're sitting there like, we were scared. We didn't want to get out the car. We didn't. I was in the back seat, and I just like, I don't want to see that. I don't know how bad he's hurt or anything like that. So luckily, he was fine. They took him to OSU, and he was good. And when we called to check on him, the nurse said, "I don't know if I'm supposed to tell you this. He went to jail right after he got better." So I guess he was robbing a convenience store, had stole something off the store. I don't really remember the whole story, but I do remember the whole night. Once we finally parked and got out the car, all night everybody was like, "Oh, those are the killers," like, you know, point happened. And I'm like, really? Even the police officers, like they got a big kick out of it. And we were terrified. Like we really hit somebody. But I guess whatever he was doing, he just ran across the street to get away, you know, to get away from whatever illegal thing he was doing. But that was one of the top craziest things that I've ever witnessed in my younger days. So yes, it's been an adventure, my 20s, but even me starting to write, I started, Nicole, just like you, I started writing because I was writing a journal. When you go to counseling, they tell you keep a journal, and it just didn't make me feel better about the situation. So I started writing poetry, and I finally released a poetry book a couple of years ago, from poems that I had written from the time I was 18 years old. So I've been holding on to it, and then finally decided to publish it. So you guys gave some great advice as far as, you know, go ahead and write your story. It's yours. You know, don't be in competition with anybody. They may sell 1 million copies in 5 weeks and yours sells 1,800. It doesn't mean it's a bad book.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that your audience and your time is coming. Have the faith in yourself and the faith in everybody else. And I'm not talking about family or friends, but faith in your work and your writing and yourself. Your time will come. So in closing, I am going to ask you guys again to hold your books up again. Shawntaye, you can go first and tell
Okay.
where they can find your book.
Okay. It's titled Holes in the Hood, and it is available for purchase on Amazon. You can get it on Amazon. You can order the paperbacks off Amazon, or you can read it on Kindle Unlimited, the ebook.
And Nicole?
And mine is called Finally Free, From Perfect Storm to Perfect Peace. And you can also find mine on Amazon or barnesandnobles.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is great. Thank you guys so much for spending your morning with me. I will be in touch with both of you as far as some other opportunities I may have for you. Maybe a radio interview or some other things, but I will be in touch, and I appreciate you guys so much. And I will be buying your books. I'll be buying everybody's book on the author panel. So, because I want to support. So support self-published authors. That's the reason I made this book fair. And I am happy I did. It was nice meeting you both, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks for coming on.
Same here, and thank you for the
Thank
opportunity.
you.
Okay.
Thank you for having us.
You're
Have a
welcome.
good day.
God bless. Bye.